Hey,
Hey.
how are
Oh,
you?
I'm so excited. Oh
Are
my
you?
goodness. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be good. It'll be good.
Yeah.
How have you been?
I'm good.
Just for everyone at home, do you want to maybe let them know what you've been doing to keep busy and kind of stay in shape for volleyball?
Well, more recently, I've been getting a more consistent workout schedule and I'm starting to train with Western next week. So I'm super excited about that. That's pretty much what I've been doing. Some ball control here or there, but not that much, to be honest.
Just for the younger athletes at home, what have you been doing for ball control?
Um, Well, I like Andrea said in the last in her podcast. She said like when you have a ball in a wall, you can do a million things. So like for me, I get a lot of setting reps just against the wall. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Just falling against the wall, different things. Yeah.
All right, cool. Let's get right into this. So for everyone that doesn't know, this is Lauren Pastor. Lauren came to the club when she was 15U, but played up for most of her time at Pac-Man and then just finished playing her 18U year for her own age. She's going next year to the University of Western to play for the women's team, and she spent quite a bit of time on the youth national team. So I guess to start things off, how did you kind of start playing volleyball?
Well, it's actually a funny story. When I was in grade 4, I really wanted to make my junior volleyball team at school. And when I didn't make it, I was really disappointed. So I asked my dad to sign me up for lessons. So I did lessons for a few months. And the person who was running this is actually associated with Etobicoke Titans, which is a different club. And he suggested that I try out for their U12 team. So at first I was kind of hesitant, but my dad really encouraged me and said, you know what, even if you make it, you don't have to play. But I made it. I decided to play, and thank goodness that I did. So.
And then moving along kind of your club career, so you're a setter now. One thing a lot of people, I think, when they first start playing is like when they hear that they're a setter, it's kind of like, oh, I'm a setter, right? It's not really seen in a very positive manner. How did you kind of come about that? Did you see it in a positive way or?
Well, when I was told that I was going to be a setter, I was definitely nervous. I started as a left side. My 1 year I played as a left side. And going into the next season, my coach told me that she wanted me to be a setter. And at the time, I was definitely nervous because I would somehow find a way to lift and double every single ball I touched. So for her to tell me that I was going to be a setter and run the offense when I could barely even volley a ball without getting called was definitely nerve-wracking for me.
Right.
But she just said that like I had the volleyball IQ and that I was going to be able to succeed in that position. So I just trusted that. And for that season, I developed a lot and I was able to be like pretty effective in my first year. And I'm glad that I made that transition because I love setting now. So
For sure. And moving along your club career, you came to the club during your 15U year, but started playing on the 16U team. How did you kind of hear about the club? Why did you want to come to the club?
Well, my beach partner, going from, I guess when I was playing like my 15U season at my other club, going into my 16U season, she encouraged me to do Pac-Man beach training. So that's when I met Kadeem and Alex for the first time. And I was working with them, and then I ended up going to an advantage camp during the summer and and then that's when I met Jesse and some other coaches. So that was kind of the transition. I wanted to change clubs. I knew that going into that season that I did switch, and Pac-Man was definitely my first choice. So that was how I mainly got introduced to the club. And I played Region 5 that summer as well. And Kaylee Glago was my teammate on that team. So she was definitely, and she was also played up. So she was definitely encouraging me to come to Pac-Man and join that team.
Okay, right. And then moving on to your 16U year, that first year you guys got there, you guys were able to win provincials. Maybe you can talk me through that season because I believe you guys got a couple of new players that year, right? How was the transition, kind of getting new players and all that?
At first, it was a little bit difficult. Like there was 5 new people, and me including 2 others actually came from my old team. So the 3 of us knew each other going into that season. Andrea was one of them. So Andrea and I played the rest of our Pac-Man careers together.
Right.
but yeah, I was one of 5 new people. So at the beginning, it was just learning about each other and like trying to work together. But as the season progressed, like we really got comfortable with each other as teammates, and we made a lot of positive strides. Kadeem was very big on like team culture and playing for each other. So I think that was something that made it super easy for us to connect on the floor and be really giving teammates. So which eventually led to us winning provincials that year. So that was just such a cool experience. We had lost to that Hurricanes team every single time we played them that year. So to win in 2 sets was definitely an amazing experience.
And for that being your first year, given that you guys won, I guess, the first big tournament that you guys played in, because Grand Prix wasn't, I guess, as big of a deal at the time. How did that feel to kind of win that first big tournament with that team?
It was just like, it was so amazing. We had worked so hard all year, and I think what made it even more interesting in the Rue pool the day before. So,
right.
And we lost, but we were so close. Like we knew we were getting closer. So I think that like just being able to win a game in that rivalry and like perform in that moment together was just really a special feeling. And being able to bring like a provincial championship to the girls' side was definitely very good for us. Yeah.
Right. And then I want to talk about nationals a little bit. That 16 year. Obviously, you guys would have been kind of heavy favorites, right? Just given how strong volleyball is in Ontario. What was that like playing against new competition and stuff?
Playing against new competition was really cool. Like that year was at Rim Park too, so we definitely had the home advantage, and there were a lot of Ontario teams, so we did play a fair share of Ontario teams because I think it was only the East as well. It was only East Nationals.
Right.
So we played a few teams from like the Maritimes and maybe one team from Quebec, but a lot of our competition definitely came from Ontario. That Nationals was rough just because we were on such a high and we really wanted to win that national championship.
Right.
And that didn't end up happening. We lost in the quarters that year, which is definitely a trend for that team through nationals through all the 3 years that I played on that team. But yeah, it was a really good experience. That was my first national championship playing with that team, so it was definitely nice.
And then that summer, you were named to play on the youth national team a year up, right, as well. What was that experience like when you first kind of heard the news?
Well, I wasn't expecting to make that team. Like, I was fully going into that tryout saying to myself,
Streak of bad. Sorry, Jesse.
I was fully like saying to myself, okay, Lauren, you're going to go to HPC this year. So go into this tryout, use it as practice. And when I got there, there were so many amazing, talented setters. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's fine. Just use it for practice, play as confidently as you can, learn as much as you can,
right,
and go from there. And it's funny because I actually heard the news when I was at my high school athletic banquet. And I was with some of my best friends like at my table. And I got the email that I made it. And I started freaking out. So that was like a surreal thing to me because I did not think I was going to make that team at all. And to play with some of those girls, a lot of them are like committed to the States now. It was definitely such an amazing experience. And we got to go to UBC as well and train there, use their facilities. And then we went to Florida for the HP tournament. Mm-hmm. And that was, we didn't place very well, but it was it was really good exposure for me. Like entering the pipeline with the national team that way, and I'm very happy with how that turned out.
Would you say there was maybe one like particular athlete on that team that first year that maybe kind of was like a mentor to you, just given that you were younger, or no?
Definitely. Like I think a lot of them actually were really nice to me. I was definitely nervous going in that I was younger, but I think mainly like Haley Armstrong. She plays at Indiana now, but she really took me under her wing and really like vouched for me with the team. And when we were playing, and my confidence wasn't the greatest because I knew I was younger and I wasn't nearly as skilled as some of the other girls. Right. But she really like made it a point to bring me up and spend time with me outside of playing as well. Like I remember we'd go to get like smoothies all the time on like our when we had breaks and everything. So yeah, definitely her.
And then moving along to your 17th year, you guys won back-to-back provincial championships, right? Because you guys won again, and you guys beat Halton in that finals, was it again?
No, we beat Defensa.
You beat Defensa. So, again, right, a team that you guys have played against a lot throughout the years. What was that like to go back-to-back?
That was also a really cool experience. I think we played Defensa a lot that year, and they actually beat us in that quarterfinal at nationals in 16U. So we definitely had like a grudge against them, and we wanted to like dominate that team whenever we played them.
Right.
So for us to win that, like that was just really cool. And I just remember that game, like the entire team was so confident, and all our team morale was like so high. The first set was like 25-18 or something, and then when we switched sides, Andrea went on this insane service run, so we won the second set like 25-8 or something. Right. And that was just so cool. Like we just built so much momentum, and to be part of something like that in the final was so amazing.
Right. And I want to talk about your youth national team experience from this summer, because I think it's a little bit more interesting. For the first time, you actually played with people your age, right? And at the time, that team was predominantly players from Ontario. Was it maybe a little weird to kind of play with those girls that maybe you've seen play or heard of, maybe didn't know as well?
Well, I think I met a lot of them from beach, but I didn't know a lot of them very well. So going into it, I was really excited. Also, for the first training block, we trained with the 18U team as well. So like Haley was on that team again. Sadie, who I played with the year before, a bunch of older athletes that I knew a little bit better were playing on the team. So it was also reassuring knowing that like I could go to them if I had some problems or I had questions. Was really nice to have that support. But yeah, meeting that team, the first day, I just remember being super excited. I think maybe a little overexcited because I think we went back and like talked about our first impressions of each other. Right. And some people said they were scared of me because I was like so like aggressive.
Right.
But like I didn't mean to be. I was just excited to meet everyone. So no, and that team, it was really interesting because it was a lot of Ontario players, which I found odd because the team the year before, like 6 girls, including me, were from Ontario. So it was the majority of the team, but there was still a lot of diversity across all the provinces. So it was definitely interesting to play with a lot of girls from Ontario, but I got close with a lot of them, and I'm still friends with a lot of them now too, considering that I played with some of them this last summer as well.
Right.
But yeah, that was just it was really cool.
And then that year you guys went to Norcigas in Honduras. What was it like to kind of get that, I guess, your first tournament of international volleyball experience?
In Honduras, they don't really have a lot of sporting events from what I heard. Like they don't get a chance to host a lot. So the fan support was incredible. Like right. There were so many people coming to watch our games because that was the event that was happening in Honduras at the time. Right. And I just remember walking in, and that was really the first time that I realized like how powerful being Canadian is, because our coach told us ahead of time. She's like, guys, everybody loves Canadians around the world. And we're like, okay, yeah, whatever. But when we went, like Honduras was always cheering for us, except when we played Honduras, because we played Honduras once. Right. But they were always cheering for us, and then they hated the States. So that was also really funny. I think the loudest I ever heard the gym get was when Honduras was playing the States. Like that was crazy. Loud. Yeah, like super, super loud, because we were going to play the game after. So we got there and we were waiting, and yeah. But no, it was such a cool experience, and to see how like it's such a cool way to experience the world, because we got to see a lot of like how they live there, and we actually got to go to like a school. So we met some kids and played games with them and stuff. And right. It was just a really cool experience to see how people live and to see the stories that people have. Right. So it was a big learning experience for me culturally in that way.
Right. And then ultimately you guys were able to come third at the tournament and qualify for World Championships. What was that feeling like?
Well, we came second. So It was top 2 teams go to Worlds. So we just needed to win our bronze medal match. Now, I didn't really perform that well at that tournament. So Phoenix Lee actually started the majority of the time. But I think like that bronze medal match, even though I got it subbed in for double subs, but that entire time, like our entire team was so engaged, regardless of whether you were on the court or on the bench. It was just this crazy feeling because we were playing Cuba and we played them in pool play a little earlier on and we lost to them in 3. Like it was a pretty embarrassing game. Because they're just such a dominant team. Like their offense is really slow. Like they set really high, really slow tempo, but it doesn't matter because they OT the block like every single time.
Right.
So that's just something we weren't used to because we were used to running like a faster, lower offense, like more similar to the American style of play, not so much of like the Caribbean style of play. So it's definitely different. But I just remember in that bronze, like we were down 10-4 in the 5th set. And and I think Hannah DeShano went on this run where we tied it up 10-10.
Right.
And then we were down again 14-10. And then Phoenix went back to serve. And then we won 16-14. Like it was just the craziest game I've ever experienced or like been a part of. And I remember like my dad was there too. I remember like crying and just like running to him and hugging him because I was so happy with how that all went. So it was definitely a crazy experience. And that tournament will always like hold a very special place in my heart for that reason.
Right. And then moving on to kind of your first round at 18U. That season you had a back injury. So maybe you can explain to everyone at home just maybe what was going on and stuff.
So it was actually midway through the season before. I started getting a lot of back pain and I went to a chiropractor. He didn't really know what it was. My physio didn't really know what it was until I got some imaging done. And they found out that I had a stress fracture in my L5 in my spine. So basically I had like there was like a break, like if this is my vertebrae, there was like a crack in my vertebrae and I had to stop playing because otherwise if I kept going, I would have risked cracking my entire vertebrae in half and then that would have possibly meant I needed surgery. So I had to stop playing for about 3 months to recover. But the timing was super lucky because I got to play provincials and nationals that year, which I wasn't sure if I was going to. However, I only got 3 weeks of practice before provincials and I only started max jumping a week before provincials. So that was interesting trying to navigate that again. But that back injury, and it's still something that like affects me now because I still haven't been able to like, get back to heavy weightlifting, which is something I really like to do, but that's definitely a goal that I've set for myself, like going into university, working with my trainers really intensely to find a way to get me back to that or figure out how I can modify workouts to incorporate elements of that.
Right. And with that back injury, people probably don't know, but you were the only setter on your 18U team that year. What was the support system like then for you when you were at practice, just to support people like Kaylee and Sadie with learning how to set?
The support was really incredible because my team knew I was dealing with back injuries for a long time. Like there had been certain games where I was in so much pain, like I wouldn't say anything to Kadeem, but they could see it on the court and then Kadeem would be like, okay, you can't play right now. And so he'd sub me out. So even earlier in the season, like because I was the only setter too, sometimes Victoria Thomas, who was our libero at the time, she also set for school on occasion. So she had some experience. Like he was even doing that just to give me a break during tournaments since I was the only setter. But I remember coming to practice, like I called Kadeem and Lindsay before coming to practice, just telling them that I wasn't going to be able to play for 3 months, which possibly meant no provincials and maybe not nationals, depending on how my back was healing. And I was going to tell my team after practice, so I sat out that practice. And I just remember telling them, and all of them, when I started saying, and I said 3, all of them said they thought I was going to say 3 weeks.
Right.
So in their head, they were like, okay, it's going to be fine. But then when I said 3 months, they were all like, 3 months? Like, what are we going to do? But I think they saw how emotional I was getting. So they were really supportive of me and my recovery. And like Sadie and Kaylee like sacrificed a lot of outside hitting reps so that they could help the team and we could play a 6-2 and still be an effective team. Like we came third at provincials that season. Like I was able to come back.
Right.
But they still played a lot because I wasn't able to play every single game. So there were still games where we ran the 6-2 and we were effective. And it was like having them there, being able to like, it's funny because it started out as a joke. Like Sadie at the beginning of the season was like, oh, like I really want to set, like I'd be such a good setter, yada yada. And then when Jessie was like, oh, Sadie, you're gonna set, she was like, okay, I was just joking. I don't know if I can actually do that. But both of them really gave it their all and supported me and the team and did what the team needed. And that's something that I'll always be super grateful for that they did.
Right. And coming back to provincials, what was that feeling like to kind of just walk on the court and kind of be able to play with your teammates again for the first time in 3 months?
That was possibly one of my favorite memories. I think like winning 16U for the first time, that provincial championship, and coming back after my injury are probably my 2 favorite memories from Pac-Man.
Right.
I just remember it was the first day of provincials and we were beating a team like pretty heavily, and Kadeem subbed me on for the last 6 or 7 points, like to go into serve, and Sadie was like going into the back row. And after the game, her mom came up to me and she says, Lauren, I don't think I've ever seen somebody happier to get subbed out of a match. Like when Sadie saw me come up to the sideline, she sprinted, she was jumping, she was like, oh my gosh, you're coming in.
Right.
So the amount of support that I got, like the minute I stepped on the sideline, the 17U girls team, which was my team this year, they were also watching. So they were cheering, they were like banging on the glass.
Right.
My entire team was cheering. Like when I came onto the court, my entire team came over and like high-fived me and like hyped me up. Right. And I do remember I was being nervous because I was just like, Lord, just serve the ball in. It doesn't have to be good, just serve it in. Right. And I did, and we won that point. And I just remember like there was just so much relief. Like being able to play without pain, and 2, like just reinforcing that my team is really there for me and really helped me through that journey.
Right. And after a tough year like that, you were able to go to Worlds, right, with the youth national team, which was held in Egypt. Again, I guess your second experience in international volleyball. What were maybe some things you were able to take away from your trip to Honduras that helped you in Egypt?
I think like the expectation of food was was a big one. Like the country that are hosting, they serve you what they eat there. So for us, like we're not necessarily used to that. It's not bad food. We're just like in Egypt, they gave us really good food. And before we got to Egypt, we trained in Slovenia so that we could get used to the time. And in Slovenia, it was pretty similar to what we usually eat. Like it was just like meat, rice, steamed vegetables. Like it was pretty standard. But yeah, like when we got to Egypt, I think a lot of us were uncertain with the food. So that was like one thing that we're kind of learning about international travel, that like for some people the food doesn't sit very well. And especially like you being tired. I remember the day we were supposed to fly from Slovenia to Egypt, we were leaving like at 5 a.m. We had to get out of our rooms, and me and 2 other roommates decided that we were going to stay up for the whole night because we couldn't sleep, which was a terrible choice because right when we got to Egypt, we had our time to train. Right. And I remember like crying, and I was a mess, and I was like, I'm too tired, I can't do this, like and like I was the captain of the team. Like that's so embarrassing for like the captain to be like crying, not wanting to go on the court and like so tired. So that was definitely a very embarrassing moment for me, and I apologized to my team and my coaches after that because I did not like myself a lot after that. But yeah, like food and getting like sleep when you can is like super important when you're playing internationally. So those are 2 things that I learned. definitely.
Right. And again, more exposure, right, to international volleyball, and you would have played some new teams that maybe you guys didn't get to play at North Seagas. Is there one team maybe in specific that sticks out to you?
Well, all the teams were very strong. We had a really tough pool too. We went 2-2 in our pool, which was phenomenal. Like, we won our first 2 games.
Right.
We played South Korea and we won in 4, and then we played Mexico and won in 5. That was a really amazing game too. And then we played Italy and the US, and those games did not go too well. Italy, we were closer. The US, we were not close at all. The closest set was like 25-15. So we got clapped. And actually, before that game, I don't know what happened. Like, maybe the food wasn't reacting with me or something, but I actually had to ask my coach to leave midway through our warm-up because I felt so sick that I couldn't play. So at like the first set, I didn't start, and then we were really struggling. So then I think in the second set, I came in like in a double sub halfway through the game, and then I started the third set. But that game was just a mess. But that US team won the entire tournament. So for us, like, Canada hasn't sent a youth team, or hasn't their youth team hasn't qualified for that tournament in 30 years. So for us, like, we placed, I think, 14th in the tournament. We could have done better out of 20, but in terms of like managing expectations, we went and we did really well. Like, and that team that went 30 years before lost every single set. So when you're like looking at goals and like managing expectation, like, we were pretty successful when we went, and we were pretty proud of how we played too.
For sure.
And we got to face some really good competition. Like in the pre-quarters, I think we played Brazil. They came third. So like, they're just a really strong team. We definitely could have played a better game against them, but yeah, it was a really cool experience. And at the end of the day, all of us learned so much, and not only as athletes, but as people from that experience.
And moving on to this year's HNU season, right? Obviously, we got cut short and weren't able to play Grand Prix, Provincials, and Nationals. Kaylee, again, right, who you had played with since your 16th year. What was it like to kind of be able to play your own age with her?
That was really cool for us because I think like we really had like a newfound appreciation for each other. Just because we've had pre-existing chemistry and we knew that we could rely on each other in important games. And it was also nice, like, I think I was lucky because again, like, that team, technically Kaylee and I were new additions to that team, right? Like, that team was developing and growing, and Kaylee and I came in and we were new, and there was a lot of new players on that team as well. And I was a little lucky because I also met Anna and Victoria. Victoria was our lib, and Anna was one of our middles. I met them through the summer through the national team program, so I was able to get really close to them. So I think I was lucky in that sense. But with Kaylee, like, we really knew that we could trust each other, and we had a certain level of not dependency, but we just knew we could depend on each other. And that was something that was like really special with our chemistry, definitely.
And what would you say is one thing that you were looking forward to this season that maybe got cut short?
I think, well, we came second in our last 2 tournaments, which you are very familiar with as well with your team. But like at the beginning, this season was also very different. When I was we played with 1 middle on the court at a time, and I would set from the middle and block from the middle in the front court. So like for me, that was a really big transition, and I actually sprained my ankle earlier on in the season, and I played the first tournament 2 weeks after I sprained it. So it wasn't a severe injury. Was it uncomfortable? Yes. Was I nervous I might sprain my ankle again? Yes. But we came 4th that tournament. We definitely could have come 3rd, but I think we all like were getting familiar with because it was a big change for my entire team. We were getting familiar with everything. But towards the end, like, we were getting really close. And Leaside was a very strong team. We lost to them in both finals. Like, they're a very strong team, but we were getting so much closer to beating them every single time. And I
Right.
think that if we had a few more tournaments, we would have been able to get there and really compete. And like, because our last tournament was Grand Prix qualifier and it was really close, but I think that we could have gone like even closer and beaten them if we had more time. And we were working on like a lot of fun things offensively in practice that I was super excited to implement into games.
Right.
Since Grand Prix qualifier and Grand Prix were a month apart from each other, all that time we were working on some new things that we never really got to showcase. Like for me also, like I was really excited about like my attacking like off of a two ball. Like I was really working on becoming a threat that way. And so it was disappointing that we couldn't execute that, but like that's definitely a goal that I want to keep moving forward in university. Like that's something that is a goal for me to be able to be an offensive option. And that I've talked to my coaches, or I'm going to talk to my coaches about that being a goal for me in my first year.
And you talked about playing in the middle a little bit. While playing there, did it maybe give you a little bit more appreciation for middles that you've had in the past?
Definitely. Like that is a very challenging job. I think often people are quick to say that setting is the hardest position, which I would say is true. But I think middles are right there with them. Like there's a reason why they only play 3 rotations. Like if they're doing their job correctly, they are moving constantly. And it's so mental, like it's such a mental battle with the setter on the other side, trying to read patterns and anticipate where they're going to set and reading their hands. Like it's such an acquired skill that takes so much practice. So it's definitely something that I grew to appreciate them for.
Right.
Because yeah.
And then I guess moving to the summer with everything being shut down, you're again named to the youth national team, right? But what's that program like online this year?
It's generally the format, our head coach runs it and all of our assistant coaching staff is all on the call as well, as long as all the players. They added a few more players to the virtual program as well and to the practice roster. So there's about, I think it's 25 of us like as athletes on the call. We do some, like we always have a special guest. So yesterday we actually got to talk to Sarah Pavin, which was like the coolest thing ever. She was the guest on our call. So that was very cool to get to talk to some really positive female athletes that are really developing women's volleyball in Canada. So for us, that's a really unique opportunity. And then at the end, we always like play a fun game to reconnect and like be competitive. And it's a lot of fun. And it's definitely something I look forward to. It's once a week. So I look forward to that a lot. And we get a lot of support from our athletic trainer as well.
Okay, cool. And I guess my last 3 questions for you. You're going to Western next year. What's something you're looking forward to?
Right now, I'm trying to manage my expectations a little just because we're not too sure what the season will look like. I think what I'm mainly looking forward to, though, is like really meeting my teammates and starting to develop like friendships with them off the court just because we don't really know what on-court training is going to look like. I am really excited like for the academic change too. Like I think I was getting really tired of high school as it neared the end. So like I'm looking forward to an academic challenge as well. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
And then second last thing I got for you is just advice for younger athletes.
I think I would say for advice, I have 2 things. So one, I think is to really try and be coachable. Like there's going to be, but also knowing like to stick with your gut. Like you are going to come across a lot of coaches in your lives that are probably going to preach very different things in terms of skill, which is fine. There's no right and wrong way of doing something, but there might be a way that works best for you. And if that's what you're confident in, that's great. But you also have to understand that even if a coach approaches you with something that's different, give it a try. Like, don't be closed-minded to that, especially if you're still developing. Your body's still learning how to create different like neural patterns and understand how you move. So there's no harm in trying something new and seeing if it works for you. And that's just like, I would say that's my first element of of advice. Also, thank you, Lindsay. I appreciate it. And secondly, I would say, in terms of like playing with teammates, I think for me, like I really pride myself in connecting with my teammates like on the court and being a source of like positive motivation for everyone.
Right.
So I think for like just advice in general, like understanding that every one of your teammates is going to respond to different things in different ways. Like not everyone is going to be lifted up in the same way, or they're not going to snap out of a funk in the same way. And like just looking at my team from this year, like I can think of like 5 different ways different athletes like respond to things I say. And it's something that you develop over time with playing with more people. Like you can't expect yourself like within the first month to be like, like I know exactly what this person's like, what I need to say to them in this time, or when they shank a pass, or when they miss a serve. Like it's a hard thing. And I think that just understanding that if you say something to them and it's not received the greatest, don't take it personally. It's not you. It's just the way that they're reacting, and you don't know yet how they react to certain things. So don't take that on yourself, because I think sometimes I internalize that as negative energy, and then it impacts the way that I play. And like they're not trying to be mean to you, or they're not trying to bring you down. They're just in their own head. And so for me, like I'd really internalize that, and it would bring me down. But I think understanding that people handle things in different ways is something that really helped me keep my distance and independently still stay positive and bring positivity to everyone around me who is receptive to it. And I think that that's something that's very important too in any team sport, not just volleyball.
For sure. And I guess the last thing I have for you is just future goals. What do you want to do? Is there something you want to maybe pursue after university?
I think right now, like in terms of volleyball, my goals would be to continue playing with the national team through university, through like their next gen program. There's FISHU, which is like I think it's the next largest multi-sport competition other than the Olympics, and it's for university level students. So that's something that I'm definitely looking forward to if I get the opportunity to compete there. Possibly the senior national team, if that's the path that it takes me. I'm also really excited for, as I said, like the academic challenges that are coming my way. I'm really excited and passionate about what I'm going to be studying at school. So I think that in terms of future goals, like I'm really looking forward to pursuing that and seeing how similar my interests are to what I think, like what I really enjoy doing in school, what maybe I thought I'd like and I don't know, just exploring those options.
And before we wrap up, just for everyone at home, what are you studying next year?
So at Western, I'm studying health science with a dual degree in Ivy. So Ivy is a business, is just like a business program. That's a second level entry program. So I get to do a dual degree over 5 years, which is great for volleyball because you get 5 years of eligibility in Canada.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was awesome.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you.
Oh, hold on. I do want to just give a shout out. Thank you, Lindsay and Jesse and Andrea, for all watching. But yeah,
okay, have a good
bye.
day.
Thank you for having me.
Bye. All right, guys. This week on Friday, we'll have the Humber Hawks men's volleyball coach, Wayne Wilkins, on.